Hello, everybody. Today's review is going to be of a show from this year called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which I gave a 7 out of 10 to. It's not my favorite Game of Thrones show as far as that goes. I would say House of the Dragon is so far my favorite. Even though Game of Thrones was good up until the last season, I suppose, because I believe there was supposed to be 10 seasons in the original series. And they just unfortunately tried to pack so much into the eighth for whatever reason. I'm not really sure whether it was just like uh, issues with actors or what exactly went down. I can't remember. I'm sure I knew at the time, but yeah, Game of Thrones has been over for so long that, like, the original Game of Thrones show has been over for so long that it doesn't really matter at this point. Um, but yeah, I feel like House of the Dragon really kind of brought it back around, and yeah, it was just such a good show. Now, I have seen the first season. I don't think I ever reviewed it, so I will probably go back and watch the first and second season. And who knows, by the time I get around to it, the third season might be done too, so I might just watch all three seasons and then do a review of it as the show is so far. But today, we're talking about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and so we'll get into the cast list before we get into the story. So we had Peter Claffey, who played Sir Duncan, or Dunk the Tall for short, I guess. Dexter Sol Ansel, who played Egg. Danielle Ings, who played Sir Lionel, the Laughing Storm Baratheon. So it seems like all of these, like, knights or princes or higher ups have like a nickname for themselves, which is the Laughing Storm. Seems like a bit of a kind of like a comedic one, I guess. So maybe he considers himself a funny man. Sean Thomas, who played Sir Raymond, the Reluctant Fossaway. Danny Webb, who played Sir Arlen of Pennytree, who was, I guess, the knight that kind of took care of Duncan throughout his childhood, and we'll get into that more, obviously. Um, Finn Bennett, who played Prince Aerion Brightflame Targaryen, and he probably had like the coolest armor in the entire show, like the dragon armor that he had, with the helmet that looked like a almost like a dragon's head. It was pretty cool armor. Uh, Daniel Monks, who played Sir Manfred Dondarrion. Bertie Carvel, who played Prince Baelor Breakspear Targaryen. Sam Spurrell, who played Prince Maker Targaryen. Tamsin Crawford, who played Tanzell, who seemed to be kind of like Duncan's love interest in the show, at least once he got to like the tournament part of things. Henry Ashton, who played Prince Darien the Drunken Targaryen, who was the one that got Duncan into a lot of trouble. Edward Ashley, who played Sir Stefan Fossaway. And then Oscar Morgan, who played Valar Targaryen. So we'll get into the actual story here. If I can flip this page one-handed. So I do have like an actual kind of like notebook now, so it's a little easier to follow along rather than just flipping through a whole bunch of pages, right? So the first real thing that obviously happens is Sir Arlen, who passes away, and we don't really know much about who he's burying at the very beginning of the show. So the first real, I guess, point of contact for the show would be when he meets a young boy who offers to be a squire. And of course, Duncan doesn't really seem like the type to take on anybody. Kind of, I guess, sort of like Arlen, because Arlen shows kind of treats him badly. Definitely a tough love kind of guy for sure. So now we are getting to the point where Duncan is going to enter this tournament to prove himself as a knight. And he claims himself to be Sir Duncan the Tall, which is kind of ironic, because even when we get like the flashback scenes, even when he was like a kid, he was already much taller than everybody else. Like he was basically the same size as most of the adults, I would say, when he was like a teenager. If I'm making, if I'm guessing the age of him anyway, in most of the flashbacks, I would say that he was around like his teen years for sure. Uh, so he does decide to finally make Egg his squire, And yes, he was a squire to Sir Arlen of Pennytree. And when he gets to the tournament, he tries to get any um, any royalty to vouch for him as a knight, but none of them seem to remember who Sir Arlen of Pennytree was, even though it seems that Sir Arlen served many kingdoms. So then when he gets to the Targaryens, it was actually Prince Baelor that says that he remembers who Arlen was and where he, how he served and so on and so forth. And I guess he said that he even faced Arlen in one of the tournaments and broke 4 of his lances before he was able to take him down. So it seemed that Arlen was a pretty formidable opponent, even though he might have been. It seemed like he was really into the drink, he was a drunk and drunk a lot of the time. But he always did protect the innocent, and I guess obviously when Duncan was a kid, he was living on the streets from the looks of things, and obviously a pretty innocent child, just trying to get by any way he could. And so Arlen comes to protect him, and then of course he follows Arlen right from that city to the point where Arlen finally, says to him, I guess I guess he just tells him to get up off the road, because I'm not exactly sure, but Duncan was stabbed in the leg in the little fight he had with the 2 knights that stole the money from him and then killed his friend there in the second last episode. So yeah, it was kind of like a turnaround moment, I guess, as Duncan may not be the most skilled in combat, but he was always had the fighter spirit, I guess, inside of him. House Targaryen, I guess, vouches for Sir Duncan to compete, but of course he can't even compete until the very 3rd day. And then, of course, he gets into the trouble when he tries to save Tanzell, and one of the Targaryen lies about how he hit him or kicked him or something. I guess I kind of maybe missed exactly the whole fight scene, but yeah, there was obviously if royalty says that you've done something, they're going to take the royalty's word over a hedge knight's word. And a hedge knight is basically somebody who has no real master, I guess. So they're just trying to find anywhere that they can serve, sort of thing. And so Duncan then finds out that his squire is part of House Targaryen and is actually Prince Aegon. Now, that name sounds really familiar, and I'm going to have to go back and watch Game of Thrones season by season, because I have them all on DVD. So I will do that and do a review of each season of that, because I'm pretty sure Prince Aegon is in the Game of Thrones show, all grown up. So this has to be before any of that. If I'm mistaken, forgive me, but I'm pretty sure it is. So, based on what had happened in the previous episode, obviously, with the other Targaryen brother, Duncan must face a trial of 7 after committing his crimes against House Targaryen. So it was kind of funny, obviously, because Prince Baelor, he kind of seemed like a good guy, but in a sense also, who was it that brought it up after the tournament? Sir Lionel. He brings it up after the tournament that, Baelor really had nothing to lose, right? He was part of a royal family. He was fighting on Duncan's side, but he didn't really care about this or that, right? Sort of thing. He was fighting for just, I guess, maybe to fill a spot, and ends up dying in the process from his brother's hands. So it was kind of a pointless thing for him to do, when he could have just, sided with his family and let his family win. But he also said that, Duncan was doing the right thing by protecting the innocent, sort of thing. So I guess in a sense he saw the good in Duncan, and maybe he also could see that, there was good and bad in his family, obviously, and wanted to make things right. So I can see where he was coming from in a sense, but also he didn't really have much to lose because his family's so big, right? That even if one of them ended up dying, they were just going to be able to continue on anyway because they had, like, their bloodline was set. Um, so he joins Duncan in the Trial of Seven, and that was probably the most intense episode. There was when they're all jousting and it's like showing the first person view, and I was like, oh my god. And Duncan does get pretty much to the point where he's almost dead. So yeah, I was really expecting him to have a little bit more training, seeing as it seemed like Arlen had quite a bit of training and was a pretty good fighter, despite being, a little bit of a drunk, I guess you could say. Um, but yeah, it was kind of funny because you saw him training with Arlen the entire time, and I was kind of taken back by the fact that Duncan didn't seem nearly as skilled as he should have been for all the training he received. But yeah, we get the flashback to his first encounter with Arlen, obviously, and Arlen saving him on the streets. And unfortunately, Arlen was a little too late before his friend had been killed. But I mean, I guess better late than never before both of them were killed, right? So yeah, he does win the Trial of Seven by, I guess, getting the Targaryens to admit or revoke their I guess go back on what they had said he had done originally, right? But unfortunately, Prince Baelor is killed. And then in the very last episode, we actually find out quite an interesting bit of information because we never really get like a actual confirmation as to whether or not Duncan was truly knighted. Now we're just going by his word, right? That he was knighted and that he's carrying on Arlen's legacy, sort of thing. But he wasn't part of Arlen's family, so he has like no real, like, I guess, sort of like sigil of his own. So he has to put his own on his shield, and of course it was Arlen's shield before his, and same with the sword. So, but in the very last episode, they're sitting by the tree, and obviously Arlen's getting close to the end of his life, and it almost looks like he passes away right there at the tree, but he wakes back up and finishes the story, and then it goes back to obviously the timeline we're in now, where Duncan is all grown up again. But yeah, Duncan does say, why did you never knight me? Like, were you afraid that I was going to leave you? Because I wouldn't have. I would have stayed to be your squire, sort of thing. And then, of course, there's the back and forth. So I was like a little taken back because I was like, I wasn't really sure if he was knighted or not, and he was asked to knight one of the other guys too. He was asked to knight Sir Raymond and wasn't able to do it. So again, kind of ironic that he walked away before he could do it, because it wasn't a legitimate knighting if he had done it right, obviously, if he hadn't been knighted himself. So he was lying about being a knight. But I guess he was kind of taking in, like, following in the footsteps of Arlen, right? So was Arlen even really a true knight, or was he just kind of like a drifter warrior type dude and just took on whatever job he could? And maybe Arlen was knighted, maybe he wasn't. I'm not really sure. And maybe that's why Arlen never knighted Duncan himself. So it's a lot. There's a lot to think about, and what could potentially happen for the second season. Now that Egg has gone with Duncan, without obviously his father's permission. We find that out at the very end of the episode. So the Targaryens are going to be hunting Duncan down now. And of course, Duncan is none the wiser, right? He doesn't know that Egg's lying to him. So he thinks that the Targaryens have agreed to let Egg come with him. So there they go on about their merry way without even knowing that, you know, they're going to be hunted down in the second season. So it's going to be interesting to see if Duncan makes it out of this situation alive, because having a whole army after you could be much scarier than being in a tournament against 7 men, that's for sure. And he almost didn't make it out of that, so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes for sure. But yeah, when the second season comes out, I will review it in whole, just like I did this one. If I didn't already say it, 7 out of 10 for this show. Again, I would say that it might be, I guess we'll see, because this is only the first season, so I don't want to speak on it, but I would say so far, as far as things go, I would say that House of the Dragon is my favorite so far, and then Game of Thrones, and then probably this one. But this is a much different story, so I'm interested to see where it goes, because I do want to see him actually become a knight if he hasn't actually been legitimately knighted. So it would be cool to see him finally like find a footing and be able to work with somebody. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes in the second season, and I guess I will see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.